And bad morning, everybody. Today is October 17, 2018. Welcome to episode 63 of Bad Morning News, with all the negative news stories unfit for mainstream media. Thanks for joining us. A couple housekeeping notes. Thank you to Brave Browser for sponsoring the show. If you want to check out a browser that isn't one of the major ones out there that's selling your data to the highest user, check them out. Thanks to anyone considering that. And we're also looking for more hosts for Bad Morning News if you're interested in this morning slot or potentially an afternoon show. Give us a shout out in the Discord or in the comments. And I think. Oh, sorry, I have to turn this heater off. Anyway, sorry for the delay. Got distracted by a couple of things going on this morning where I am, but in any event, here we are. And I'll get to the first story. A couple stories have to do with just some weird things that happened yesterday with a couple major sites, YouTube and Twitter. I don't know if any of you out there noticed that YouTube was down. My time it was late afternoon, night, depending where you are. I noticed YouTube was not working sometime late last evening, and I guess it was down for a couple hours. And I at first, I didn't realize it was YouTube down. I've never, haven't seen that happen for an extended period of time before. But I realized there must be some issue after it still wasn't working after an hour or two. But this first story is from express.co.uk by James Bickerton. YouTube down. Video streaming website not working worldwide, causing outcry on Twitter. Users have reacted with fury after the popular Google-owned video sharing platform went down worldwide, with the site apologizing and vowing to restore normal service as soon as possible. YouTube appears to be back online this morning after a major outage hit the site overnight. Users attempting to access the site were met with a largely blank page with gray boxes where videos should be. Any attempt to play a video produced the message, an error occurred, please try again later. YouTube users and content creators took to social media to express their anger and shock. Brianna Sarmiento tweeted, "Is something wrong? Because YouTube is not working. None of the apps work. Is everyone else having a bad time with this?" Gabby DiMartino added, "Is it just me or is YouTube broken at the moment?" Naomi Flores commented, "Why is YouTube down when I have only 5 minutes to watch a quick video, then head to class?" In August 2018, YouTube was ranked as the second most visited website in the world, behind only Google. According to a February 2017 estimate, around 1 billion hours of content are watched on the site every day, with 400 hours of material uploaded every hour. The site was founded in February 2005 and was bought the next year by internet giant Google for 1.65 billion. Another Twitter user added, "Guys, YouTube just shut down in the US and UK. I checked my Wi-Fi. My friend is having the same problem." Meanwhile, Brittany Bitch posted, "Is YouTube down because I need to watch and it keeps giving me an error." Web video producer Marcus Brownlee, who had nearly 3 million Twitter followers, commented, "Never seen YouTube down for 30 plus minutes like this before." And responding to the outage in a Twitter post, YouTube commented, "Thanks for your reports about YouTube TV, and YouTube Music access issues. We're working on resolving this and we'll let you know once fixed. We apologize for any inconvenience this may cause and we'll keep you updated." and access to YouTube was restored shortly before 4 a.m. YouTube tweeted, "We're back. Thanks for your patience. If you continue to experience issues, please let us know." And this article is written from a UK standpoint, so I guess it was 4 a.m. there. When it came back on, I think it was. I checked it at around 11 p.m. at my time, and it was back on. So it's interesting. There was a little speculation I saw, wondering if this is some kind of revenge over YouTube's latest round of censorship, and we know they've been targeting a lot of people in the alternative news type community. So some people were speculating if this has anything to do with that, if there's anybody trying to deliberately take YouTube down. That's an interesting question. I don't really know what to think at this point. I'm sure it's possible. Let me know what you guys think. If you think this is just something that happened and it's a coincidence, or if you think there possibly are people trying to deliberately get back at YouTube. We'll have to see if this happens again. And also, it's about, according to BusinessInsider.uk, Twitter sent out weird cryptic messages to users, and nobody had any idea what they meant. This article is written by Paige Leskin. Twitter users started getting weird notifications from the app on Tuesday afternoon. Users had no idea what to make of the messages, so they took to Twitter to share their confusion. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey says the messages were due to a glitch that made code appear publicly. Twitter users were getting some unusual notifications on Tuesday afternoon, and no one was able to figure out what they mean. People took to social media, Twitter mostly, to express their confusion and share their theories about what the cryptic messages could mean. The notifications consisted of seemingly random jumbles of numbers and letters. Some Android users on Twitter said they didn't receive the garbled notifications, but it's unclear if the glitch only affected iOS users. Even Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey received the strange notifications and posted that the company was working on fixing the issue. The account for Twitter support posted soon after that the notifications were due to a glitch that made behind the scenes code visible to users. The issue was quickly fixed, Dorsey said. Yeah, I didn't see that happen. I have Android, so that's interesting if it maybe only happened to those with Apple, with iOS. Let me know if you any of you out there noticed this because I didn't know about this until just now. And again, it's weird. I don't know if this is a coincidence. I don't know if there are people out there mad at Twitter and YouTube, understandably, at this point. And who knows? I'm trying to wean myself away from Twitter and YouTube, but I know it's still going to take time. And it's still obviously irritating when you do want to go in and use one of those things and it is down or whatever. But just underlines the need to move away and decentralize further to new platforms. I know there's a new Twitter alternative called Liberdon out there. It's been mentioned by a few people that I highly respect and follow, including the founder of Bad Morning News, Jeremiah Harding, and that might be worth checking out. It's I think it's spelled Liberdon, Liberdon. And let me check out the comments here. Danielle says, "Bad morning. It is likely that sites have their glitches from time to time." Bad morning to you, Danielle. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I agree. It's probably not difficult for any site, even these major sites, to have their issues. So, who knows? And let's see. The next story just broke not too long ago, and this article comes from RT.com. Let's see if there's any specific author. Don't see a specific author on this one. This is from RT.com. Bodies lying everywhere. Shooting at Crimea College has echoes of Columbine massacre. It started like any normal day on campus at the Polytechnic College in the Crimean city of Kerch, but it quickly turned into a horror story, drawing somber comparisons to the fateful 1999 Columbine massacre in Colorado. Before the day would end, at least 19 lives would be taken, and dozens of students would suffer injury at the hands of a gun-wielding man. As the drama unfolded, conflicting information was making its way online. In the initial confusion, reports suggested there had been a gas explosion inside the building, but it soon became clear that something much more horrifying was playing out. Police were now reporting that an unidentified explosive device had gone off inside the canteen on the first floor of the college. Forensics experts and FSB explosive ordnance teams were quickly dispatched and tasked with preventing other possible explosions as word trickled out that authorities were treating the incident as a possible terror attack. They would later change the classification from terror attack to multiple homicide. But it wasn't just the explosion. Inside the building, people were hearing gunfire. Some would later describe seeing men with their faces covered burst into the building, armed with assault rifles and firecrackers, opening fire indiscriminately, terrorizing students and teachers. Only one man responsible for the shooting was found, but in the panic and confusion of the moment, people believed they saw more than one killer. Investigators haven't ruled out that there may be more. Online witness accounts and gruesome details were beginning to appear on social media. There was a blast and then the shooting. We started jumping out of the windows. Children's bodies were lying all over the place. One student recalled of the horror. As medics tended to injuries at the scene, other victims were rushed to the hospital. Local Russian media posted photos showing ambulances and injured people lying on stretchers outside the college. As the dust settled, images from CCTV cameras appeared on the Telegram channel MASH. They showed a young man wearing a white t-shirt with black text and holding a large gun, making his way down a stairwell. On Twitter, the comparisons to the Columbine massacre immediately began. His clothes bore striking resemblance to those of Eric Harris, one of the two students who killed 13 people and injured 24 with guns and knives at the Colorado High School almost 20 years ago. The man was quickly identified as Vladislav Roslykov, an 18-year-old student of the college who police now say shot himself on the second floor of the building after carrying out his rampage. It turned out that little more than 1 month ago, on September 8, Ruslyakov had received a permit for a 12 caliber rifle. He bought 150 rounds of ammunition for the weapon just a few days before he would walk onto his college campus and murder 19 people. Then came the reports about this man and the kind of person he was. Quiet, closed off, uncommunicative, and interested in maniacs and serial killers, his classmates said. His parents, they explained, had divorced not long ago. He and his mother had left his father and lived together in a rented apartment. In a cruel twist of fate, some Russian media reported that Galina Roslykova, the killer's mother, a nurse who works at the Kerch Oncology Center, was there to admit patients wounded by her own son. That's the end of that article. I guess this happened yesterday. I just heard about it this morning. And sounds like people were drawing comparisons just based on the appearance of this guy, comparing it to one of the shooters in Columbine. I don't really know that. I don't know what else is coming out about him. I guess we'll have to see. But it always seems like they paint these people in the same way, so the comparison uh, isn't surprising. It ends up, I mean, not just physically, but just the characteristics of the person that they talk about. That he was closed off and quiet and all those types of things. I think similar things were said about the people involved with Columbine and with other mass shooters. But um, again, following all of these things, they always talk about mental illness and people who are just quiet and closed off. But I think there's a danger in constantly painting quiet people as potentially. I mean, you don't want to be in a place where you're thinking that everyone who's quiet and doesn't necessarily like talking to people and is not really outgoing. I think it would be dangerous to start thinking or assuming that all of those people are potential mass murderers or anything. I know a lot of people fit that description and are certainly not dangerous. So I think it's a really complicated issue when it comes to knowing you know who has the potential to become dangerous. And sometimes following these incidents, we always hear about try and reach out to people, reach out to that kid who's quiet and seems depressed or whatever. And it's just not that simple. I mean, a lot of people are depressed these days. Apparently, a lot of people are introverted, and you don't always know what they're going through, and you don't know if they want you to really get involved and ask them what's going on. I don't necessarily think that's great either, because sometimes if it's kind of like all the U.S. government talk about see something, say something, where on the one hand it makes sense, but on the other hand, it seems like the government is taking it to a point where they're asking people to police each other essentially, and if that goes overboard, it becomes kind of a 1984 scenario where you have people tattling on each other, reporting each other to authorities, and as we know, that can lead to bad things when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If we've covered many stories on the show of cops being called by people who think they're just doing the right thing for being concerned about someone or whatever, and then people end up getting shot dead because the cops came in and decided somebody wasn't doing what they were ordered to do by the cops, and then they end up dead. So it can be a really tough thing to try and navigate here when it comes to people who are potentially violent and respecting, people's privacy, essentially. But yeah, it's bad news, certainly, and of course, my thoughts are with anybody affected by this over in Crimea, and it's certainly never a good day when a good feeling when potentially going anywhere, especially going to a college or something like that, and you don't expect to die. But it's also an interesting question. Why does this seem to happen at colleges and schools a lot? Maybe just because of the concentration of people, or I don't know why exactly that is. Something to be pondered. Danielle says, LOL, we currently live in a 1984 scenario, only it is 2018. I agree. It's true. It is true. In the next article I'll get to today has to do with Amazon. There's a few interesting things coming out about Amazon. And this first article is from MarketWatch.com. Jeff Bezos chides rivals, says Amazon will continue to work with Pentagon. Amazon CEO says tech companies can't turn their back on government. While some tech companies are backing away from working with Pentagon, Jeff Bezos says Amazon.com Incorporated won't be one of them. Speaking in San Francisco at an event for Wired's 25th anniversary Monday, Amazon's chief executive said he was baffled that some companies have cut Pentagon ties after employee dissent. "We are going to continue to support the DoD, and I think we should," said Bezos. "One of the jobs of senior leadership is to make the right decision even when it's unpopular." Amazon has faced internal criticism for some of its work with the US government, including facial recognition software that critics fear could be misused. Fellow tech giant Alphabet Inc. last week withdrew from the bidding process for a lucrative cloud computing contract with the Pentagon, which Amazon is still in the running for, over concerns that it would clash with the company's principles. Microsoft Corp employees have also urged their company not to bid for military contracts, citing ethical reasons, and over the summer, Alphabet's Google said it would not renew a Pentagon contract for artificial intelligence that could be used for lethal purposes after employees raised concerns. But Bezos said tech companies cannot walk away from the government over political differences. "I know everybody's conflicted about the current politics in this country," he said. "This is a great country and it needs to be defended." Bezos's private space company, Blue Origin, recently won a major government contract to supply rockets for Pentagon satellite launches. And there's another quote in the article from Bezos. He said, "If big tech companies are going to turn their back on the Department of Defense, this country is going to be in trouble." And that's all in this art. That's the end of this article. I think this is really telling. I don't know if he's come out saying things like this before, but it's the first time I've heard of him pretty much coming out and explicitly saying that he wants to support the Department of Defense and that he thinks that's a good thing. And he says that, yeah, it's, I know people are divided right now, and that kind of makes me think that, he sees it as maybe a resistance thing, with just the liberals who hate Trump now all of a sudden realizing that they don't like the government because the guy they don't like is in power. I don't know if that's what he sees when he sees people protesting the companies they work for in terms of these employees who've been speaking out. I don't know if he sees it as just like a temporary thing. But to me, I'm certainly not, just one of those come lately, oh, I hate the government now that Trump's in office people. And I certainly think that tech companies getting in bed with the government is a bad thing, as we just talked about with the 1984 aspect. I don't think that big tech getting in bed with government can end well for anyone, really. And I think it's telling, and I'm glad that he's come out and said it that way, because personally I've taken a lot of issue with a lot of things Amazon has been doing. As mentioned, he's already gotten contracts with the CIA and done cloud computing for them, and I've been trying to wean myself off of it, and haven't been using Amazon lately. And I know it's tough because a lot of people are reliant on them now. A lot of people are signed up for all of their Amazon Prime stuff, and it's really convenient to a lot of people. And we say the same thing about, Google and YouTube. It's convenient, they have the convenience there because they're good at doing what the consumer wants, and that's the good side of it. However, the bad side is that if the money being, you know, given to them in patronage based on their usability, and if that money is ending up going to the government or going to strengthen an institution that's going to help the government do all kinds of unethical things, that's a time to reconsider, at least from my perspective. So I feel a sense of urgency now to try and move away from Amazon, and I know it may be difficult for a lot of people just because they've become such a big fixture nowadays. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about that, because there's a lot of talk about Google, about Microsoft, and Amazon has been mentioned also, but um, I have not seen as much pushback. I'll say that from the people complaining about Google. Haven't seen as much pushback by some of those against Amazon. But this ties in with the next article, which mentions this is from Activist Dumb, written by Aaron Kiesel. WikiLeaks releases a detailed list of all Amazon Web Services data centers ahead of DoD decision. WikiLeaks has published an alleged highly confidential document outlining the addresses and operational details of Amazon Web Services data centers called Amazon Atlas. The international whistleblowing organization claims to have published the document as an attempt to shed light on the largely hidden locations of cloud-based servers. While one of the benefits of the cloud is the potential to increase reliability through geographic distribution of computing resources, cloud infrastructure is remarkably centralized in terms of legal control, WikiLeaks wrote in a statement. Until now, this cloud infrastructure controlled by Amazon was largely hidden, with only the general geographic regions of the data centers publicized. AWS's global infrastructure page details Amazon's geographical locations for its servers in terms of regions. For example, US East has 6 locations in North Virginia and 3 in Ohio, while Europe has Frankfurt, Ireland, London, and Paris, with 3 zones or data centers in each country. WikiLeaks notes, currently Amazon is one of the leading contenders for an up to $10 billion contract to build a private cloud for the Department of Defense. Amazon is one of the only companies with the certifications required to host classified data in the cloud. The Department of Defense is looking for a single provider, and other companies, including Oracle and IBM, have complained that the requirements unfairly favor Amazon. Bids on this contract are due tomorrow. Prior to the release, WikiLeaks turned the document into a puzzle game called The Quest of Random Clues. The goal of the WikiLeaks game was to encourage people to research these data centers in a fun and intriguing way while highlighting related issues such as contracts with the intelligence community, Amazon's complex corporate structures, and the physicality of the cloud, according to the organization. This comes as Amazon has been openly working with law enforcement, which caused an astounding 20 groups of Amazon shareholders to send a letter to CEO Jeff Bezos urging him to stop selling the company's facial recognition software, called Facial Recognition with a K, to law enforcement. This is all further evidence that Amazon, once known for online shopping, is now a key company aiding the police state and helping shape the future of surveillance with biometrics. Additionally, the company has previously taken a $600 million contract with the CIA for cloud computing developed by its subsidiary Amazon Web Services. If that's not enough, as Activist Post has previously reported, Amazon is also taking a nosedive straight into retail with Amazon Go, which will utilize cashierless stations and likely biometric security cameras for anti-theft purposes, exactly like what is being planned by hundreds of thousands of other retailers. Amazon's fifth transparency report revealed earlier this year that the company provided more customer data to U.S. law enforcement in the first half of last year than in its history, with a shocking 1,936 different requests between January and June 2017, ZDNet reported. Amazon didn't state why there was a spike in U.S. government requests during the first half of the year, but for a company that openly has a partnership with the CIA for $600 million worth of cloud servers, with a pending possible $10 billion contract with the Department of Defense, this information should be troubling. This also comes as Google has been facing months of backlash for its own shady contracts with both the US and Chinese governments. In 2013, the US intelligence community spent $8 billion on information technology, according to budget documents leaked by former NSA contractor Edward Snowden. And that's the end of that article, just adding more context to Amazon and essentially why it may be time to jump ship from Amazon. And it's kind of funny since I live in Seattle right now, right at the headquarters, right where the headquarters of Amazon is located, as well as a lot of their other satellite little operations. They have a bunch of new Amazon Fresh stations where I guess people can go and pick up their pre-selected items, where you have somebody goes and shops for you and puts your order together, and people can go and pick that up, kind of like a drive-through type thing. I've seen those pop up in just the past couple years, so they're really expanding, and they're also building a new headquarters in Seattle. Um, and there was a whole controversy over whether they would stay or leave when the city council of Seattle was trying to impose new taxes on them. But I don't know. In any event, it's all very disturbing. I don't really know what to do at this point other than try to move away from them as much as possible, which is all we can try to do, and that may not end up really making much difference in the end. If they end up working for the government, um, I mean, and then yeah, I mean they have this cronyist relationship with the government. It mentions in the article that Amazon is one of the few companies with the qualifications to be considered by the Department of Defense, and so it kind of shows this double-sided relationship where they're getting the regulations that benefit their business, and in turn makes it harder for smaller alternatives to compete with them. And what they get in return is government contracts, and that's what separates companies like this from legitimately privately held business, in my opinion. But let me know if you guys have any thoughts, because honestly, this is just kind of disturbing, and I don't really know what to make of it right now. Alright, let's see. Check out comments. Daniel says Orwell being used as a manual again. Max Ogburn says can't or won't Bezos. Danielle says you would think that the warnings would have been heeded, but apparently people think they can get away with anything now. Daniel Hatfield says there are about 32 marketplace competitors to Amazon at present. May many more arise. That's good news. That's good to hear. And Danielle Hatfield says, "To me, if you can't trust the source of the business, you probably can't trust the business in one way or another." And Daniel also says, "I don't trust Bezos." Yeah, I don't trust him either. I don't know if any of you've ever seen an interview with him. I saw one a while ago, and he just comes off. I don't know. It's not really fair to say he seems creepy, but he seemed kind of creepy to me. I mean, that doesn't mean much, but that's just my overall take from him. But that's probably not too uncommon with a lot of tech types. So I don't know. Yeah, it's not about, how he acts. It's about the choices he makes, and apparently he wants to jump in bed with the government and help enforce our impending doom. And for that, I do not want to support his business ventures at this point. And that leads to a third article this morning about Amazon. I think it just goes well together, and it's a good time to really present these articles. This one's from Medium.com, written by Trevor Tim. Shock, anger, disappointment, and Amazon employee speaks out. The company's controversial face recognition software is being used by police. Pardon me. In June, more than 100 Amazon employees signed a letter to CEO Jeff Bezos, strongly protesting the company's push to sell its controversial facial recognition software, known as Rekognition with a K, to local police departments around the country. The letter now has been signed by more than 450 employees, and an Amazon employee published an anonymous op-ed with Medium detailing their concerns. Rekognition has made headlines for months as civil liberties groups have called on Amazon to stop selling the software to police departments because of the extreme privacy and civil liberties concerns that accompany the technology. In August, the ACLU uploaded 10,000 mugshots into the software and cross-referenced photos of each of the 535 members of Congress. The results yielded 28 false matches, a disproportionate number of whom were African American. Instead of heeding to the criticism, Amazon doubled down, saying the company has unwavering support for law enforcement and military uses of its products. Amazon signed a $600 million contract with the CIA in 2014 to provide it with cloud hosting. And it also mentions what I've just been talking about, so I won't overread that. I spoke with the Amazon employee who wrote the op-ed. This person, who has spoken with me on the condition that their name not be revealed for fear of professional retribution, has significant concerns about Rekognition being used and abused by police departments around the country. Trevor Tim, he's the writer of this article, he asks, and then they have the employee answer. Trevor Tim, what has Amazon's response been internally to the letter? The company has known about employee concerns for at least a few months now. Amazon employee, so far it's been radio silence. There's been no official response to the letter, and certainly no apparent change in how they market Rekognition. Maybe they're hoping the problem will go away on its own, that if they don't concede on this, we'll get discouraged and stop raising our voices in the future. It's the same tactic they used on the internal campaign to stop advertising on Breitbart. When Rekognition was first introduced, what percentage of people within Amazon would you guess knew about the service? What type of reaction did you get from your colleagues when they found out? Amazon employee says a lot of Amazon Web Services people knew about the service since it was a high-profile launch for them. The rest of the business is often unaware of AWS stuff, but I don't think most knew it was being sold to police departments. I remember finding out about the service when it was announced and thinking it was actually pretty cool because it could do all sorts of image analysis and object detection, all this really advanced computer vision stuff with the click of a few buttons. It didn't occur to me then that it would be sold as a surveillance product, and maybe that was naivete on my part, but from a lot of colleagues I've talked to, that was a pretty common reaction. Shock, anger, disappointment. Trevor Tim, when ACLU tested recognition on a large number of mugshots and got 28 false matches with the members of Congress, did you think that was a turning point? Amazon employee responds, this was a big story externally, I think, and it prompted a response on one of the official Amazon blogs. There was also a little chatter about it internally, but I wouldn't say it was a turning point. Trevor Tim says several other facial recognition companies have openly said recently their tech isn't ready for police use and they worry about inaccurate results and the potential for abuse. Do you think those working on this project at Amazon feel the same way? Amazon's public comments, in contrast to others, have shown no hesitation. Amazon employee responds, well, of course, the public comments are going to be unrelentingly positive, especially when the people giving the statements are high-level executives and not developers themselves. The fact is, I don't think this is an issue that low-level workers feel comfortable raising on their teams. At Amazon, one of our leadership principles is disagree and commit. This is meant to encourage honest criticism and discussion, but it doesn't seem to apply to ethical issues, as we've seen. Raising ethical concerns, especially concerns that could hurt the bottom line, gets you essentially stonewalled. And the second part of disagree and commit is that no matter how much you disagree, once a decision is made by your superiors, of course, you have to follow it. Trevor Tim asks, do you see any corollary between Bernie Sanders constantly criticizing Amazon and the company eventually announcing a $15 minimum wage? Amazon employee responds, there is certainly a common thread to be found. We should remember that while Sanders may have brought the wage issue to the forefront in recent months, this $15 minimum wage concession is the result of many former and current workers speaking out and increasing signs of workers organizing in warehouses from Minnesota to Madrid. This win was worker driven, and I think if we want to be able to change anything at corporate, those efforts will also have to be worker driven. Trevor Tim asks, has there been any retribution or fear of retribution among employees who speak out? The employee responds, I haven't heard of any retribution yet, but there's definitely fear, even just to sign this thing that already has hundreds of signatures. And of course, some people have more to lose than others. I've talked to people who are afraid to speak up because if they were fired, it might jeopardize their immigration status. Fear isn't unfounded, it should be taken seriously, but it's also something we can work through together. We have each other's backs. Tim asks, what do you think Amazon will do next? And the employee responds, it's hard to say. We just have to keep working, keep building a network of people who care about this, and keep fighting. Maybe we won't win the demands of the letter in the short term, but if we keep working together, we can build lasting power. Trevor Tim asks, how do you see this campaign with other recent protests among employees at major tech companies? Do you feel like this is part of a larger movement in the industry? The employee responds, definitely. I've personally felt inspired by the various employee actions at Google, Microsoft, and Salesforce, just to name a few, and I'm sure a lot of us share that inspiration. I think it's clear this is just the beginning of a movement for more employee control of what gets built and for whom. There are going to be a lot of battles we won't win at first, but there are also some great examples of success already, like the Maven contract cancellation at Google. We just have to keep building for the long term. And Tim asks, why are you anonymous? Employee responds, "The first reason is safety. The second reason is that this isn't about me. I can't claim to represent every signer of the letter or supporter of the campaign, but I hope I at least have spoken for some of us and that my perspective on the campaign is shared by others." And that's the end of that interview, I suppose. Brings up some interesting points where he says that the culture at Amazon is basically that they're free to express their disagreement, but once they disagree, they're pretty much expected to just go along with it. And I mean, in terms of dynamics within a business, I of course believe that the people who own a business have. I mean, basically, I'm just trying to say I'm not a socialist or anything in like advocating for non-hierarchy or all of that type of stuff. I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with hierarchy in itself, um, you know, but to me it is about the choice of Amazon as a whole. If that's what their employer wants to do, that's his choice. And if they don't like it, it's on them to try and change it. And if they can't change it, I guess the choice is up to them whether they want to leave that job or not. But as far as my standpoint, it's not necessarily about that. I feel bad for the workers not having more say in just the strict business sense, but that that is Bezos's choice, and that's the direction he wants to go in, and it's my choice as well whether I want to support Amazon as a business or not. And certainly from what Bezos has been saying, I'm definitely going to try to avoid them as much as possible. So I'll get back to some comments here. Let's see if Daniel says he seems creepy to me. LOL. So does WAPO. Washington Post was always left leaning, but it fell off the edge a few years ago. And Daniel says, well, the general population upon which this is used may have some other ideas. Who prevails? Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean that's the biggest problem with cronyism, right? We don't get a choice in being monopolized by the police system, and then you have what were private companies deciding to weigh in on the side of benefiting the police state as it is. So you got to wonder whose side are they on, I mean, if Bezos sees no problem with aiding law enforcement in ushering in the age of biometrics and being totally unable to escape scrutiny from government or others via technology, whose side are they really on? Good question. All right, this next article comes from Reason.com, written by Losing the Property Rights Lottery, stripping otherwise law-abiding residents of the opportunity to rent their homes is bad enough, but raffling off property rights is shameful. Donald and Irma Shirky tried to play by the rules, but Pacific Grove, California turned their property rights into a game of chance. The couple purchased their brightly painted house on 5th Street, just a block from the ocean, in 1999. It was a second home for family and friends to use on visits. To cover the cost, the Shirkys decided also to rent the house out as a vacation home. When Pacific Grove passed a new ordinance in 2010 requiring all short-term rental homes in the city to be licensed, they complied. When the city came back in 2017 and required a second license for the smaller guest quarters over the home's garage, which the Shirkys sometimes rented separately from the main house, they went along with that too. Then in February, Pacific Grove passed another ordinance regarding short-term rentals. This time, the city instituted a density cap, declaring that no more than 15% of the homes on any given block could hold short-term rental permits. The Shirky's guest house happened to be on a block with more permits than were allowed by the new ordinance. To solve that problem, the city set up a ping pong ball lottery machine and on May 22nd held a random drawing to determine which permit holders would be allowed to continue renting their homes. The odds were not in the family's favor. While the permit for their small upstairs guest quarters was selected in the lottery, the permit for the main house was not. The Shirkys are now left with a second home that cannot legally be rented and a small upstairs room that is not financially viable on its own. What the city did is insulting, says Christina Sandifer, a vice president at the Arizona-based Goldwater Institute, which is representing the Shirkys and two other residents in a lawsuit against the city. The suit argues that Pacific Grove violated the California state constitution's due process protections by using random chance to determine which licenses got revoked. It was totally random, Sandifer says, so owners who had racked up numerous complaints were allowed to keep their permits while responsible homeowners were stripped of theirs. The underlying problem, though, is that the rental density ordinance itself. A 15% threshold is entirely arbitrary. Does a street with 25% of homes rented constitute a greater threat to public health or safety? How about 40%? Stripping otherwise law-abiding residents of the opportunity to rent their homes is bad enough, but raffling off property rights is shameful. With any luck, courts will also find it unconstitutional. That's the end of this article. To me, this again just shows the complete lack of respect for property rights by government entities. In this case, it's a city ordinance that is arbitrarily deciding who's allowed to rent out their own property and who's not. And unfortunately, we've been seeing a lot of this more and more in recent years after Airbnb has gained a lot of popularity among people. Of course, then the governments decide to come in and fuck it all up by instituting all of these regulations, saying that people aren't allowed to rent for one reason or another. I know here in Seattle, the city also just passed a couple new laws that would require permits and require a tax to be paid to the city in order for people just to rent their own property on Airbnb or other sites. And of course, it's nothing more than a money grab, and it's also protectionist in a lot of cases. I believe New York City might have some kind of regulation, if not if they didn't just outright attempt to ban Airbnb style rooms, of course, claiming it's in the name of protecting people. You know, that's always the excuse government likes to use. It's doing things for your protection. It wants to protect you from some horrible perv who rents out his room to some poor innocent person. But unfortunately, we know, you can't fix bad people and bad things with laws. I mean, in what way does government regulation protect someone from someone who's just intent on being evil and doing something bad to someone? I really don't see it. But I think the more accurate reason for a lot of this regulation is protectionism, with the cities and states trying to protect the hotel industry, because the hotels have been suffering losses because of the popularity of Airbnb. Because many times, just from my personal experience, a lot of Airbnbs are cheaper than a lot of hotel rooms in a lot of places, and also just the quality of what you are renting ends up being better than the quality of many hotel rooms. especially in the motel, on the motel side. I mean, for the price of like a motel room, in a lot of cases, you can get a pretty nice Airbnb because it's someone's own property, and so they have more incentive to take care of it. But again, just like with Uber, the government's stepping in to try and force people not to choose what fits them best and to choose these older established things like hotels or like taxi cabs, um, and trying to force them to submit money to the government via taxes in the same way that hotels and taxis do. I think that's what it all boils down to is they want their cut. So I'll check out some comments here again. Gregory Patrick is here. Good to see you, man. Gregory Patrick says, perfect process, lol. Save me from myself. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but okay. Always good to see you, man. And we have a couple minutes. Let's see. Maybe we should hit up a lighter piece about Stormy Daniels or something here. Just to, I don't know, I feel brought down by the news today. I kind of want something ridiculous to end on. Let's see. Alright, this is from TheGuardian.com. Defamation lawsuit against Trump dismissed. Federal judge also ordered adult film actor to pay Trump's legal fees, but has not yet fixed an amount. A defamation lawsuit filed by adult film actor Stormy Daniels against Donald Trump has been dismissed by a federal court, with the judge saying the tweet at the heart of the case was protected by free speech laws. Daniels, whose real name is Stephanie Clifford, has said she had a sexual encounter with Trump in 2006. Daniels has said that in 2011, a man approached her in a Las Vegas parking lot and threatened her after she had agreed to talk about her experience with Trump in an interview. She then released a sketch of the man. In the lawsuit, Daniels alleged that a Trump tweet, which said she had fabricated the encounter, had defamed her, saying it made her out to be a liar. In the April 2018 tweet, Trump said, a sketch years later about a non-existent man, a total con job, playing the fake news media for fools, but they know it. In Monday's decision from James Otero, a federal judge in the Central District Court of California, it was found that Mr. Trump's statement constituted rhetorical hyperbole that is protected by the First Amendment. He noted if this court were to prevent Mr. Trump from engaging in this type of rhetorical hyperbole against a political adversary, it would significantly hamper the office of the president. Any strongly worded response by a president to another politician or public figure could constitute an action for defamation. Otero also went on to order Daniels to pay Trump's legal fees, but has not yet fixed an amount. Michael Avenatti, Daniels' attorney and a potential 2020 Democratic presidential candidate, said Clifford would appeal. On Twitter, he said Daniels' other claims against Trump and former Trump attorney Michael Cohen proceed unaffected. Trump's contrary claims are as deceptive as his claims about the inauguration attendance. Avenatti added, we will appeal the dismissal of the defamation cause of action and are confident in a reversal. Daniels has also sued over a $130,000 hush money agreement over the alleged encounter with Trump. In a statement, Charles Harder, Trump's personal attorney, said no amount of spin or commentary by Stormy Daniels or her lawyer, Mr. Avenatti, can truthfully characterize today's ruling in any way other than total victory for President Trump and total defeat for Stormy Daniels. Avenatti countered early on Tuesday with a tweet about the various court cases involving Daniels and the president, and declaring that the above statement is an outright lie. The American public deserves much better from Mr. Trump, he said. I agree with that. I'll give him that. I agree. The American people deserve much more, but we also deserve much more from any politician at any time, and I don't have faith that that would ever be delivered, which is why I don't support politicians as a general rule. But in any case, I haven't been following this whole thing too much, but sometimes, you gotta lighten things up with garbage like this. Um, but it is funny to think that all the people who donated to Stormy Daniels' GoFundMe are now paying Trump to pay his lawyer. So you get what you sow. If you lie down with dogs, you get up with fleas. If you are if you cling on to all of this ridiculous sideshow stuff, you end up unhappy because it's garbage. And there's a lot of legitimate things to complain about regarding Trump, and all of this is not one of them. I would be, if I can be so bold to say, you know, I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm kind of speechless. Let me look at the comments. Alright, Danielle says, LOL. Gregory Patrick says, the lottery, okay. The lottery for property rights. Weird idea. Yeah, I mean it's garbage. The idea that we need to participate in a lottery in order to have rights to rent out our own property is ridiculous on its face, and hopefully those people succeed in their lawsuit. Daniel says, trust the state, it's not like it has anything to hide. Oh, wait. Daniel says, go for it, bring the storm. Danielle says, no one knows what's going on, LOL. Daniel says, all those never Trumpers paying his fees. Yep, well, it's good to know I'm not the only one who's lost. Daniel says, LOL, poetic justice. I agree. And that seems like a good place to end for today. I want to thank all of you for being here. Today's October 17, 2018. This has been episode 63 of Bad Morning News. I'll just add in a final plug. If you're interested in becoming a host for Bad Morning News, give us a shout out on Discord or in the comments here. I'll have all the links from today's articles posted in the description within a few minutes of the video loading and processing and whatnot. And in any event, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks for being with us on Bad Morning News. And I'll see you tomorrow. Remember, screw the state, fuck the system. Bad morning, everybody.